right, now that you know a little bit about the background of Qigong and some of the results you might get, we're going to now get into some of the fundamentals of the practice. So there are 4 fundamentals. So I'm just going to list them for you now, and then we're going to go over each one individually. There's beginning and ending, shape and structure, breath and movement, focus and attention. Now that sounded like 8, but they kind of work in pairs, and I'm going to go through them now with you in pairs. So the first pair is beginning and ending. So the position that we're going to start in when we begin our practice is called the Wu Ji position, and this position is a position of emptiness. So we want to clear our mind of any thoughts we might have. Let's just say it's early in the morning and you're starting your practice and you had some bad dreams, or you're kind of having a busy day ahead and you're thinking about what's coming. You want to empty your mind of that and try to get as clear as you can so that you can put your energy into the energy that you're creating in the practice. So the Wu Ji position is just for that, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the structure in a moment, but right now I'm just going to get into the beginning and the ending of the practice. So we'll start in the Wu Ji position of emptiness, and then we're going to step into the beginning position for the practice, and that is you're going to lean to one side and stretch the other foot out. And you want your feet to be approximately shoulder length apart. But the really important thing is that you want to be comfortable. So if this feels like it's too wide, you might want to do a little bit of a closer stance. If this doesn't feel like it's wide enough, you might want to go a little wider. This is really about how do you feel, how comfortable do you feel, because so much of Qigong really has to do with comfort, and we want to be relaxed when we're doing Qigong. So finding that position is important. Some of the movements are going to require a certain way for the feet and other parts of the body to be aligned, so we're going to be careful in thinking about that, and I'll do the teaching on that as we get to it. So this is our opening position. I like them a little bit closer with my feet slightly out, and you can again decide what works better for your feet. So that's the beginning position. So I'm just going to do that one more time so you can see that motion. We're leaning to one side, doesn't matter which side. I'm going to lean to my right, which is your left looking at me, and step out. If you want to make it wider, you can step out with the other foot. I'm going to go back to that. About shoulder length works pretty well for me. Now, after we finish our practice, we have a particular ending that we're going to be doing, and I'm going to show you now the ending position, which is kind of the opposite of what we just did. Again, you're going to lean to one side, and then you're going to lift, and as you bring the foot in, you're also going to raise the arms. So I'm going to do that again. So we're leaning to one side, doesn't matter which side, leaning to a side, and it's the side you lean, that's the leg that's going to lift up. So leaning and lifting, and then arms up, and we're actually integrating here. And then that's the ending practice. So beginning and ending is one important fundamental. The next one is shape and structure. So you may have noticed as I was standing in the Wu Ji position that I have a bend in my arms here. So this bend is it's actually called a bow, and there are 5 bows that we want to be conscious of in our body when we're doing Qigong, and we want to maintain this as much as possible throughout the practice. So there's 2 bows in the arm, so you can see that the elbow is relaxed. We have our shoulders relaxed. You might notice I'm shaking a little bit here. That's just kind of releasing maybe some stagnant energy that I'm feeling. So we want to feel free to do that as you're doing your practice whenever you're feeling the need for that. So there's a bend in the arm, the wrist is bent as well, and there's a minor cup, not really like a cup, but a gentle bend in the hands, and the fingers are apart. And our tendency is to kind of lift our thumbs like this, but the thumbs are relaxed as well. So those are the first 2 bows, the arms. The second 2 bows are the legs. We want to make sure that our knees are slightly bent. So you can see in my legs that there is a bend at the knee and that is bow 3 and 4. So we've got 1, 2 for the arms, 3 and 4 with the legs. Our tendency with our knees, and I do this a lot and I have to watch it constantly, is to lock them. Very bad for posture. You can see what happened when I locked my knees. Everything kind of went out of balance. So we want to keep that gentle bend in the knees throughout the practice. So 1, 2, 3, 4 with the legs. And the 5th bow is the back. So as women, and maybe this is true with men as well, some of you, but I've been taught to like suck it in, right? Suck the belly in. In Qigong, we want the belly to really be loose. We want it to hang. So we don't want it to hang so that we're, bending back here, but we want to relax that belly. So you can see, here's me sucking it in. Here's the relaxing. Nothing happened back here. It was fully just letting the belly relax. We want to stand tall. We want to think about the spine going in 2 ways. So you can imagine something is pulling here, and also the tailbone is dripping down. That's a really nice word, dripping. So you've got that bend in the knees, the dripping of the tailbone, but also the rising of the upper part. So there's still a little bit of a roundedness in my back, and you can see for some of the postures we're going to have that roundedness. So that's the 5th bow, is the spine, and thinking about all those pieces that go together with how to arrange for the bows. So I'll be mentioning, when I say the 5 bows, that's what you're going to be checking: the arms, the legs, and the spine, and making sure that that's your basic posture throughout. The 3rd fundamental is breath and movement. So the breath is probably one of the most important things of all. Many of us have a tendency to breathe in the chest, and we may breathe fast. A lot of people breathe fast. So we want to make sure that we are actually breathing through the whole body and right down into the diaphragm. So when we do, and I'm going to go to the side so you can kind of see what my belly does. So I'm checking for the bows right now, and now I'm going to inhale. So I'm inhaling. Obviously it's got to go through the lungs first, but inhaling, filling up my diaphragm. So it's hard to talk while I'm breathing at the same time, so you're going to watch my diaphragm fill up, and then with the exhale go back down. So watch how this works. Inhale. And when I do the exhale, that's an opportunity to suck it in if you want for a little bit, because the actual sucking in right here just above the lower belly helps to push it out through the lungs. So I'm going to just do that again through the front. So 5 bows, inhale. And that is pretty much the breath. So what is the breath doing for us? The breath is doing a lot for us, actually. The vagus nerve, which actually goes from the bottom of the skull at the top of the spinal cord, it goes to many organs in the body, and it also goes down through the inside of the diaphragm. So when we breathe, we are stimulating the vagus nerve. Now, I talked a little bit in the introduction about stress. Some of the things that are happening in our body when we get stressed, it's basically called the fight or flight. You may have heard of that whole phrase of it's the limbic brain, the ancient reptilian brain that we have that reacts to things. Sometimes you might find yourself just like you almost had an accident and your hands are, you're having a moment of that fight or flight. When we have those moments, or even sometimes for longer periods of time, depending on how we're reacting to things, all kinds of things happen in the body, and the stress that's caused releases cortisol, which is a hormone, through the body, and also adrenaline, and it's called the stress hormone. And it's great that we have these available, because there are times when we need to run from the tiger and I use that as a kind of a joke, but where we have to act because something has happened, and you've heard of stories where people actually lift things that they should have never been able to lift because the adrenaline gets going. So there are times when that is necessary, but for the most part, when we're going into that response, it's not necessary. So it's about just learning about that can help us. But that's why when people say, if you feel yourself getting stressed, take a nice deep breath. And when I say take that deep breath, you want to breathe into the diaphragm, because you're stimulating that. One of the things that's happening is you're stimulating that vagus nerve, and now you're releasing serotonin, dopamine, good feeling hormones that are now easing that stress response, so you can go back to homeostasis, which is where we like to be. And so coursing through our veins and our body now are those wonderful hormones that can help bring us back to that balance. And that's a big part of Qigong as well. By using this breathing throughout our movements, we are constantly stimulating those good feeling hormones that our body is just luscious to our bodies, so that we can actually heal. So that's the breath, and along with the breath goes the movement. So the breath actually precedes the movement of the energy. So we're going to be learning a bunch of different movements, and as we're learning these movements, the breath goes along with them. So I'll be showing you individually with each movement about the breathing, and this is something that I want you to just keep in mind in general, and specifically with the breath, but in general. So I'll speak to the breath first. Everybody has their own flow of breath. Because I've been doing meditation for so much of my life and yoga, I have a very long breath. So I can take a very deep breath, and it's comfortable. So you're going to find, as you start to practice, what is a comfortable deep breath for you. Because if you try to take a long deep breath and you don't have that breath, you're actually going to be, it's not going to work. So you have to find what is your comfort in terms of that deep breathing. So it's going to be a touch and go practice kind of thing, and I'll show you some adjustments you can make based on what your breath is. So that's something important to keep in mind regarding the breath. But in general, anything that I am showing you, so I'm going to be showing movements where you're raising an arm. You might have a shoulder thing going on where this is a very uncomfortable movement, so you're not going to do that in the same way. You're going to keep it lower. Or even, you're going to find what works for you and your body. The last thing you want to do from Qigong is to add insult to an injury that you already have, or to something chronic that's going on for you. So it's very, very important that you do these movements in response to your own body and who you are and what you know about your own body. And even though these movements are kind of specific, they really don't matter that much. The big thing that matters here is the energy, and the fact that we are moving the energy and bringing ourselves back to that restorative place where we are in harmony, where the qi is in harmony. And Qigong is a practice that you are going to want to do every day if possible, even if you can't do the whole form you're going to learn today. If you do a couple of the movements, you're giving a benefit to yourself. So even a couple of movements every day is going to make a difference in your life. So, but it is a practice that you're going to want to make part of your day. So that's breath and movement. And another piece of the movement is rise and fall, which is the movement of the knees. So I'm again going to do this from the side, because this is an important, really important, specific thing that's important for your knees. So when you're doing I'm going to start with actually the fallings, because I'm already risen here. Hallelujah. So with the fall, you're imagining that behind you here is a low stool, and you're actually going to sit on the stool. Now, oftentimes if we were going to sit on the stool, we'd done like that. We don't want to do the bending. We're letting our spine kind of fall, but we're also back a little bit, and the knees bend a little bit. So it can be even less than that knee bend, depending on you and your body. Some people can go really far. One thing you never want to happen is you do not want your knees, and I'm not even going to do it now because it's damaging. You don't want your knees to go beyond your toes, and you want them to be aligned with between the second and third toes, so that the knees are aligned straight with the foot in between the second and third toe, and they never should go beyond the toe, except for certain positions, which I will discuss when we get to those. But for the basic rise and fall that goes on, it's basically fall and rise. If you feel that you can go further, you can go a little bit deeper with your fall and rise. But it's not important to go very deep. So I recommend starting off with just a small bend in the knees and rising and falling that way. So that's another piece of the movement. And then the last one, and it's not last but least, these are all important, is focus and intention. So I mentioned in the beginning the Wu-Ji position and that place of emptiness. And that is really going to help us to focus, is to actually get present. It's about presence and being in the moment and being present to the practice and to more or less an empty mind. Now, it's really hard to keep an empty mind with no thought. So I'm not suggesting that. But if you find yourself, this is a moving meditation, and if you find yourself off at work in your thoughts, then you just want to gently bring yourself back to the present moment. This is a wonderful mindfulness experience because it really involves being present to the motion, noticing the energy itself, which you're going to be able to feel over time. All of that is really critical for the benefit, to obtaining the benefits from this practice and the joy. It's really a joyful practice. QiGong actually means energy work, but I think of it as energy play, and I've always had this kind of thing: work is play, work is play. I don't know if I mentioned, but I've been a teacher most of my life, an elementary school teacher, and that is one hard job, let me tell you. But when you make it play, because you got a bunch of kids in front of you, so that was kind of one of my themes: work is play, and try to bring that play into it. So I'd like you to think about that with QiGong as well, because you want to bring that play, and you want to bring the fun, and you want to bring the joy, because that is adding to the benefits and adding to the joy of life. And when this vital life force energy starts coursing through, it's going to just automatically bring that joy to you.